One, this is Tunde, and today I'll be talking about the limit range, right? I'll talk about the limit range. For those of you who are familiar with it, well, this is for those people who are not familiar, right, with this limit ranger and what it does. And what is a limit ranger, right? A limit ranger, what it simply does is allows you to specify the default resource allocation for a pod in a particular namespace. Now, sometimes we want a situation whereby we don't want anybody that is creating a pod to just leave the resource request or the resource limits specification empty. Now, for most people that create pod, for example, an Nginx pod, most of the time you leave those pods empty. Now, what about if we want to supply a default resource allocation for a particular pod if none were given? Now, this is where the limit ranger comes in. So all you have to do is just specify a limit ranger for the namespace where you want this to be enforced, and everything should be okay. For example, look at my limit ranger. This is my limit range, and I'm creating it in a namespace called team A namespace. So anybody that tries to create a pod in the namespace team A, right, without specifying the default memory request or the default memory, right, so get, what they will do is they will get this value from the limit range for that particular namespace. So that is the job of a limit range. Let me give a very simple demo. This is let me go ahead and keep it here. Apply file pod1 .yaml. So this is pod1 .yaml, right? It will create the namespace and the limit range. So the limit range is going to be created, and the namespace is going to be created. Now the next thing that we need to do is we need to see what happened if we try to create this pod. Remember, this is an Nginx pod, and all it does is, let me just name this best pod. All it does is very simple. It simply creates a pod, right, with one container of Nginx. It doesn't do any kind of resource specification. Now, normally this is going to be accepted into your Kubernetes cluster without modification. Now, because we have a limit range in the namespace team A, what happened is this particular pod gets automatically modified. That means it automatically gets a default memory limit, because we specify that the memory limit should be given to the pod if it doesn't have one, and it also gets a default memory request because we specify the same thing in the limit range. So let's go ahead and do that and keep it here. Okay, apply file pod 2 .yaml. All right, now the pod has been created, right? Normally we expect that get pod best pod is called best pod. Okay, namespace is called team A, right? So you want to get it. Okay, the pod is running, so let's go ahead and see what the pod is made of. So let's look at the resource allocation. As you can see, the pod automatically gets the allocation that was specified in let me try to bring them side by side, and if you look at them, right, okay, let me try to make them side by side. If you try to look at both of them, you will notice that the Nginx that we did not specify anything for automatically got a resource limit and resource request, because in that namespace we have a limit range. So that is the job of a limit range. Now, I love to talk about how something like this could be useful in production. This could be useful in production when you use it in conjunction with resource quota. Resource quota enforces, the amount of resources that can be used by a particular entity. Now, resource quota requires that every pod in the cluster have a limit, right? Now, if you are using resource quota and you want to make sure every pod, has a limit, regardless of, the any way it was created, even if the limit was omitted, the pod should still get a limit, because if the pod does not have a limit, resource quota is going to reject it. Right. So the way to enforce that the pod get accepted by having a limit is using the limit range. So most of the time you will be using the resource quota and the limit range hand in hand. So that's it for now. Thank you very much.